My name is Eva Whitmore. I'm 25 years old, the youngest of three, and the last one left. I hadn't spoken to my siblings in over a decade. When Dad died, the lawyer's letter was the first thing that brought us all into the same room since the funeral that never happened. It was a bland white envelope, heavy in the hand, sealed with a wax crest of the old family emblem, a lion biting a snake. Even in death, he still loved symbols. We had ignored his death when it came, each of us retreating into our corners of the world, each of us burdened by different reasons for why we didn't mourn the man. But the will that brought us home. Home, that word never felt right. The mansion wasn't built for warmth. It was a fortress more than a house, seated high above a jagged cliff that overlooked the angry waves of the Maine coastline. All black wood and sharp lines, it always looked like it was waiting to be struck by lightning. The sea crashed violently against the rocks below like it had been doing battle for centuries. Even in summer, the air up here always felt colder, heavier. And the storm, of course, had already begun to gather as we arrived. Like it knew. Claire was the first to arrive. I watched her step from a black town car, heels clacking on the gravel, cigarette already lit between red-painted fingers. Her hair was dyed too blonde, her coat too expensive. She hadn't changed a bit, still sharp, still guarded. She glanced at the windows, caught my eye, and nodded like she was checking a box. There were no hugs. Jeremy arrived next. A rental SUV with dents in the bumper and 3 unpaid parking tickets on the dashboard. He looked tired, older, but under the beard and the bloodshot eyes was still the baby of the family, the one who cried when the dog died, the one who ran away from home and never really found a way back. He offered a hand when we met at the door. No one took it. We greeted each other like strangers at a wake, polite, awkward, cold. It was easier than honesty. The air inside the house was stale, scented faintly with old paper and dust, as if the house had held its breath since the last time we were all together. Portraits lined the walls, the dead watching the living return. There was a presence here, always had been. Even as kids, we felt it. The way the shadows moved wrong down the hall. The way the grandfather clock chimed, even when unwound. The way Dad's footsteps echoed even when he wasn't home. The tension between us was instant, not just awkwardness, resentment. Claire looked at me like she wanted to say something cruel, like she was biting it back just barely. She'd always thought I got off easy, that I was spared the worst of Dad's moods, his punishments, his manipulations. But she didn't understand what it meant to be the one he wanted to mold. Jeremy wouldn't meet my eyes at first. When he did, it was brief and guilt-ridden. Like I reminded him of a promise he'd broken, like we had all let each other fall apart and none of us wanted to admit it. Dinner was tense, silent forks clinking against antique plates. Claire drank too much. Jeremy barely touched his food. I stared at the chair at the head of the table. Dad sits chair. Still there. Still waiting. Later that night, Claire found me in the hallway near the linen closet. She was already tipsy. "You know he would have picked you," she said flatly. "You were the only one who didn't fight him." I turned slowly. No, I was the only one who learned to survive him. She scoffed. Same thing. We stood there for a long moment, two ghosts in a house of memories. Then she said what she always wanted to say. "I should have left when Mom did." I didn't respond. There was no good answer to that. Because deep down, I agreed. The next morning, Jeremy found a dead crow on his windowsill. Its wings were splayed out like it had been placed there, not dropped. Arranged. He didn't speak as he brought it downstairs, wrapped in an old hand towel. I saw it in his eyes, that slow spreading panic. Like he'd already accepted something none of us wanted to name. Claire said nothing, just poured gin into her coffee, her hands trembling only slightly. Later, I found her in the upstairs hallway. She was staring at the portrait of our father, one we always hated but never dared take down. Her voice was quiet, cracked. "You think he did this?" she asked. I didn't pretend not to understand. She nodded slowly. He hated weakness. Maybe this is just another test. That night, the whispering began. Whispers through the vents, beneath the floorboards, too soft to make out, but they knew our names. Claire. Jeremy, Eva. Always whispered in that order. Always with breath that didn't belong to any of us. I dreamt I was in the nursery again. The mobile spun overhead, casting claw-like shadows on the ceiling. A lullaby played in reverse. I woke up soaked in sweat, gasping. The mirror at the foot of the bed cracked diagonally across its surface. I wasn't set alone. Even when I was. Jeremy was getting worse. He didn't sleep. He barely spoke. I caught him one night pressed against the fireplace, his lips moving but no sound coming out. Claire snapped. She accused him of trying to scare us, manipulate us. He didn't deny it. He just looked through her. By the second evening, the fridge had stopped humming. The pantry smelled like death. And the mold, it had crept under the paint, streaks of black-green across the ceiling. We didn't talk about it, we just noticed it. We grew up in that house, but it never really felt like ours. Claire had the weight of being first, perfection expected, love withheld unless she earned it. Jeremy tried to protect us and paid for it in scars we couldn't see. I was the one Dad tried to make in his image. I got his lessons, his charm, his silence. None of us were free, not then, and not now. The final 24 hours dragged like an eternity. Claire stopped speaking altogether. Jeremy became still. I began to hear movement when there was none. Mirrors reflected things behind me that weren't there. At 2 in the morning, I woke to the sound of the mobile, the one from the nursery. I wasn't in my room, I was in the crib. I blinked. Back in the attic, wet with sweat, the mobile still spinning in my ears. Jeremy banged on my door just before dawn. "She set's gone," he said. Claire's room was torn apart. The window was open, curtains flailed like panicked arms in the wind. Her suitcase was untouched. On the mirror scrawled in red one word. Below. We didn't need to ask. The basement was colder than it had any right to be. The door opened for us like it had been waiting, and in the corner, a hatch. It wasn't there before. Symbols carved into it, ones that matched the fireplace, the nursery corners, even Dad's ring. We descended. Under the house was a chamber. A tunnel, candles lit themselves as we stepped inside. Portraits lined the walls, but they weren't just of us. They were of families, dozens of them, all with familiar faces, repeating names. Claire, Jeremy, Eva. Over and over. In the center of the room, a cradle. Inside, a black rose, fresh. Jeremy stared. "He made us for this," he whispered. And I knew. This wasn't inheritance, it was ritual, a selection. We weren't heirs, we were offerings, molded in repetition, birthed by a house that remembered us from lives before. Jeremy turned to me. "I once sit be like him." And he stepped into the cradle sep's shadow. The lights died. When they returned, he was gone. I was alone. Now I sit in the parlor. The final minute has passed. The storm is over. The door is unlocked. And I don't leave. Because I understand now, the house doesn't want us gone. It wants us remembered. So I write and I wait. Because one day someone will come and the house will open its doors again. And when they arrive, it won't feel like fate. It'll feel like coincidence. A road trip detour, a curiosity passed down in a letter. Maybe they'll laugh at the dust, at the creaky stairs, at the antique clocks that never seem to work. But the house will notice them, the way it always does. It will learn their steps, measure their silences, echo the names buried somewhere in the back of their minds. I wonder if they still see me. I wonder if, just for a moment, they'll catch the glint of someone behind the curtain upstairs, a woman with hollow eyes and a story etched into every wrinkle of her face. Will they knock? Will they come in? Or will they turn back before the door even opens? I hope for their sake they do. But if they don't, the house will remember. And I shall be waiting, because someone always is. But this time, maybe they still listen sooner. Maybe they'll see the way the shadows stretch just a little too far down the hallway. Maybe they'll recognize the weight in the silence, the way the walls seem to breathe when no one else is around. I think about my childhood often now, the way Dad's eyes darkened when we asked too many questions, the way Claire used to sleep with a flashlight under her pillow, convinced something lived in the crawl space, The way Jeremy used to read to me after dark because the bedtime stories Dad chose were too strange, too specific. Back then, I thought fear was normal, that a house could groan and sigh and lock doors on its own, and that was just what houses did. But it wasn't set normal. It was patient. The house let us go only long enough to grow ripe with guilt and grief and disillusionment. Then it called us back like it always does. Not out of cruelty, but out of design. Claire once said she should have left when Mom did. I wish I could tell her she was right, but I'm not sure any of us could have escaped the gravity of this place. It doesn't let go. Not really. Sometimes when I close my eyes, I can still hear the mobile. Tick, tick, tick. Sometimes I feel Jeremy's presence near the cradle. Sometimes I hear my own name whispered softly just behind me. The house remembers. And so I wait. Not because I expect rescue. Not because I have hope, but because someone will knock again. And this time, I'll be the one watching from the upstairs window. The last Whitmore. The first warning. Because stories like this, ended end, they repeat. Like the tide, like the ticking of the grandfather clock. Like the sound of a mobile slowly spinning in the dark. Because someday, someone else will come looking. And the house will open its doors. Again.